The stars looked cold and empty from the window of the diplomatic vessel. Ambassador Vila stood alone, watching the small blue planet grow larger as her ship moved closer. Earth. She had heard stories about this world and the strange creatures who lived on it. Humans, they called themselves. Vela had been chosen by the Galactic Council to deliver a simple message: submit or die. It was the same message the Council had sent to dozens of species over 10,000 years. Some species surrendered immediately. Others fought and were destroyed. The result was always the same. The Council always won. She expected this mission to be easy. Humans were new to space travel. They'd only left their planet a few hundred years ago. Their technology was primitive compared to the great empires of the galaxy. Their military was small. Their population was limited to a handful of colonies. They should be terrified, Vela thought. Any reasonable species would be. Her ship landed on a platform outside a large building made of white stone. The sky above was blue with soft white clouds. Trees with green leaves grew in neat rows along the pathways. It was beautiful in a simple way. A group of humans waited to greet her. They wore dark uniforms with small metal symbols on their chests. Vela studied their faces. They looked calm, relaxed. One of them, a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes, stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador," he said. His voice was warm and polite. "I am Admiral Park Tae. Please, come inside. We have prepared refreshments for your journey." Vila followed them into the building. The walls were decorated with paintings and photographs. She saw images of Earth from space, of mountains and oceans, of cities filled with lights. She also saw images of soldiers, of old wars, of flags she did not recognize. They entered a large room with a long table. Tae gestured for her to sit. A young woman with short black hair poured a warm brown liquid into a small cup and placed it before Vila. "Tea," the woman said with a smile. "It is a traditional drink on our world. I hope you enjoy it." Vela looked at the young woman. Her name tag, Red Lee Bora, communications officer. She seemed genuinely happy to meet an alien species. There was no fear in her eyes, and no worry. Just curiosity. Strange, Vela thought. Very strange. She decided to begin her mission. She pressed a button on the device attached to her wrist. A holographic image appeared above the table. It showed the Galactic Council's armada. 10,000 warships arranged in perfect formation. Each ship was capable of destroying a planet. "This is the power of the Galactic Council," Vila said. Her voice was firm and practiced. She had given this speech many times before. "We control 700 star systems. We command armies of billions. No species has ever defeated us in battle." The humans watched the hologram with mild interest. Admiral Park Tae sipped his tea. Vila continued. "The Council demands that Earth submit to our authority. You will pay tribute. You will follow our laws. You will provide soldiers for our armies. In return, we will protect you from threats and allow your species to survive." She paused for effect. "If you refuse, you will be destroyed. Your colonies will be burned. Your people will be scattered. Your history will be forgotten. This is not a threat. This is simply the truth. Every species that has refused our offer has been eliminated." She changed the holographic image. Now it showed planets on fire, cities crumbling to dust, ships exploding in the darkness of space. The recorded screams of dying aliens filled the room. "This is what happened to the people of Nexer Prime," Vila said. "They had an army of 2 million. They lasted 3 days. This is what happened to the Vorn Collective. They had defensive shields that could stop asteroids. The shields meant nothing. This is what happened to the children of Raxi 7. They tried to flee. We found every single one of them." The images stopped. Silence filled the room. Vila waited for the fear to appear on their faces. She waited for the panic, the desperate questions, the begging for mercy. Admiral Park Tae set down his cup. He looked at her with those steady eyes. "Thank you for the presentation, Ambassador. It was very informative." Folded his hands on the table. "But I'm afraid we must decline your offer." Bella blinked. I am sorry. You decline? Yes, Tay nodded politely. Earth does not recognize the authority of the Galactic Council. We have no interest in paying tribute or providing soldiers. We wish to live in peace, but not under the rule of others. Vila felt confused. This had never happened before. Admiral, perhaps you do not understand. I showed you what happens to species that refuse. Total destruction. Extinction. There would be nothing left of humanity. I understood perfectly, Tay said. Would you like more tea? Vila stared at him. She looked around the room at the other humans. A woman with sharp eyes and a cold expression sat near the window. Her name tag read, Yoon Hannah, Intelligence Commander. A large man with scars on his hands stood by the door. His tag read, Kim Seok, Captain. None of them looked afraid. None of them seemed worried at all. Why are you not afraid? Vila asked. The question came out before she could stop it. I showed you your death. I showed you the end of everything you love. Why are you just sitting there? Lee Bora, the young communications officer, tilted her head slightly. Should we be afraid? That night, Vila could not sleep. She walked through the halls of the building where she was staying. Through a window, she could see humans walking in the gardens below. They were laughing, talking, living their lives as if nothing had happened. She had threatened them with annihilation. She had shown them horrors that made other species collapse into despair. And they had offered her tea. Vela returned to her room and opened a communication channel to the council. Elder Rin's face appeared on the screen. He looked impatient. Well, Rin demanded, have they surrendered? Vila hesitated. How could she explain what she had seen? How could she describe a species that did not react to fear? Something is wrong with them, she said finally. They saw everything. The Armada, the destroyed worlds, the death. And they just... smiled. Rin frowned. That is impossible. All species fear death. Not this one. Vila looked out her window at the stars above Earth. They do not understand fear. Or perhaps they understand it too well. I am not sure which is worse. She ended the transmission and sat in the darkness for a long time. Something was very wrong with humanity, and Vela was beginning to think the council had made a terrible mistake by coming here. Vela decided to stay on Earth longer than planned. The council wanted answers, and she could not give them answers without understanding this strange species first. Admiral Park Tae agreed to let her study human history. He assigned Intelligence Commander Yoon Hannah to be her guide. Hannah was a small woman with cold eyes and a face that rarely showed emotion. She spoke in short sentences and never wasted words. Vila found her difficult to read, but impossible to ignore. On the first day, Hannah took Vila to a building filled with screens and old documents. It was called the Archive of Human History. Thousands of years of records were stored here. Every war, every plague, every disaster. You want to understand us, Hannah said. It was not a question. Then you need to see what made us. She pressed a button. And the first images appeared on the screen. Vela saw armies of humans, fighting each other with primitive weapons. Swords, spears, arrows, bodies covered the ground like fallen leaves. The fighting went on for years, for decades, for centuries. This was before we had technology, Hannah explained. We killed each other with whatever we could find. We fought over land, over food, over ideas, over nothing at all. The images changed. Now Vela saw weapons that shot fire and metal, machines that rolled across the ground, crushing everything in their path, ships that dropped explosions from the sky. To great wars, Hannah said. The first killed 20 million. The second killed 80 million. We invented new ways to kill faster. Poison gas, fire bombs, and then something worse. The screen showed a bright flash of light. A giant cloud shaped like a mushroom rose into the sky. Below it, an entire city disappeared. Nuclear weapons, Hannah said. We built bombs that could destroy everything, and we used them twice. Vela felt sick. You used these weapons on your own people? Yes. But why? Hannah looked at her with those cold eyes. because we wanted to win. The images continued. Vela saw wars in jungles and deserts. She saw walls dividing cities. She saw people starving while others had too much food. She saw diseases that killed millions. She saw humans hurting other humans in ways that made no sense. This is only a small part of our history, Hannah said. We have been fighting ourselves since the beginning. Every generation found new reasons to kill, new weapons to use, new ways to cause pain. Vela's hands were shaking. She had studied many species. She had seen civilizations rise and fall. But she had never seen anything like this. Most species fought their wars against others. They did not destroy themselves with such determination. How are you still alive? Vela asked. How did your species not end itself? Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, We came close. Many times. 17 times, we nearly destroyed ourselves completely. But we always found a way to continue. We adapted. We learned. We survived. She changed the image on the screen. Now Vela saw humans working together, building cities, launching ships into space, creating art and music and medicine. We decided to change, Hannah said. It took hundreds of years, millions of deaths. But we finally understood that we could not keep fighting ourselves forever. So we united. We became one people, one Earth. Vela tried to understand what she was hearing. The Galactic Council used fear to control other species. They showed their power. They demonstrated what they could do. And most species surrendered immediately because they could not imagine surviving such destruction. But humans had already seen destruction. They had caused it themselves. They had walked through fire and blood and horror for thousands of years. What could the Council possibly threaten them with that they had not already experienced? You are not afraid of the Council, Vela said slowly, because you have already faced worse. Kiana nodded. The Council showed us burning planets. We have burned our own cities. The Council showed us dying children. We have killed our own children. The Council threatened to end our species. We have threatened to end ourselves 17 times. She turned off the screen. The room went dark. We have a saying on Earth, Hannah said. Survive first. Grieve later. It means you do what you must to live. You feel the pain afterward. We have been doing this for thousands of years. It is who we are. Vela sat in silence. She finally understood. The Council's greatest weapon was fear. They broke the spirit of other species before the fighting even began. They made their enemies believe that resistance was impossible, that death was certain, that hope was foolish. But you cannot make someone fear death if they have already died 1,000 times. You cannot threaten someone with horror if they have lived through horror all their lives. You cannot break a spirit that has been broken and rebuilt over and over again. Humans were not brave. They were not stupid. They were not crazy. They were simply survivors. They had learned to take their fear and turn it into something useful. They had learned to look at the end of everything and keep moving forward anyway. What happens now? Vela asked. Hannah walked toward the door. Now you understand us. The question is what you will do with that understanding. That night, Vela sent another message to the Council. Elder Rin listened with growing frustration. They are primitives, Rin said. Their history of violence proves they are savages. We will crush them easily. Vela shook her head. You are not listening. Their history of violence is exactly why we should be worried. They have been preparing for threats like us for thousands of years. Every war they fought taught them something. Every disaster made them stronger. Rin laughed. You are afraid of them now? They are one small species on one small planet. I am not afraid of them, Vela said. I am afraid of what they might do. They do not see death the way we do. They do not fear destruction the way we do. If we attack them, they will not surrender. They will fight until there is nothing left. And they will make us pay for every inch we take. Rin's face hardened. Then we will show them true power. We will send a demonstration fleet. We will destroy one of their colonies. Then they will learn fear like every other species. The transmission ended. Vela stood alone in her room. She thought about Hannah's cold eyes, about Tay's steady calm, about Bora's simple question, should we be afraid? The Council was about to attack a species that had spent thousands of years learning how to survive the unsurvivable. They were about to threaten people who had already threatened themselves with extinction. Vela had a terrible feeling that the Council was not ready for what would happen next, the demonstration. Fleet arrived 3 weeks later. 500 warships jumped out of faster-than-light travel near small human colony called New Sol. It was a mining world with only 50,000 people. The perfect target to teach humanity a lesson. But Vela learned about the attack before it happened. She had made friends among the Council's communication officers. They told her about the fleet. They told her about the target. They told her it would happen soon. She ran to find Admiral Park. Tay. She found him in a garden behind the military command building. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. Tay stood by a small pond, throwing pieces of bread to the fish swimming below. Captain Kim Seok stood nearby, reading something on a small screen. "Roll," Vela shouted as she approached. "You must listen to me. The Council is sending a fleet, 500 ships. They are going to destroy one of your colonies as a warning. You must evacuate those people. You must do something." Tay did not look up from the fish. He threw another piece of bread into the water. "Please," Vela begged. "I know you are proud. I know you do not want to appear weak. But you cannot let 50,000 people die just to prove a point. Surrender something. Anything. Give them a small victory so they will stop." Tay finally looked at her. His eyes were not afraid. They were not angry. They held something older, something deeper. "Ambassador Vela," he said quietly, "in our history, there was a nation that attacked us without warning. They thought, if they struck first, if they hit us hard enough, we would lose the will to fight."
Ow.
He returned his gaze to the fish. They were wrong. Seok spoke without looking up from his screen. "The colony has been evacuated, Ambassador. 3 weeks ago." Vela felt her blood turn cold. 3 weeks. "But you only learned of the attack today." "I only learned of it today. We knew the Council would test us," said a voice from behind. Vela turned to see Yoon Hana walking out of the command building. "We have known since before you arrived. We watched your ships. We listened to your communications. We know everything the Council plans before they plan it." Vela could not believe what she was hearing. "You knew I was coming to threaten you." "Yes, you knew about the demonstration fleet." "Yes, then why did you let me give my speech? Why did you let me show you those images of destroyed worlds?" Hannah's expression did not change. "We wanted to see what kind of enemy we were facing. We wanted to understand how the Council thinks, how they operate. What they believe makes other species surrender." Tay wiped his hands on a small cloth. "We learned a great deal from your presentation, Ambassador. Thank you for that." Vela felt dizzy. She had thought she was studying the humans. She had thought she was learning their secrets. But they had been studying her all along. They had been learning the Council's secrets through her. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we wait," Tay said. "The Council fleet will arrive at New Sol. They will find an empty colony. They will also find a message from us." "What message?" Hannah smiled. It was a small smile, but it was the first time Vela had seen any emotion on her face. A reminder of what humans are capable of. The demonstration fleet reached New Sol exactly on schedule. Commander Tal, a decorated officer of the Allied forces, led the attack. He expected to find a frightened population begging for mercy. He expected easy targets. A quick victory. The colony was empty. The buildings stood silent. The streets were clean. Not a single human remained. Tal felt confused. Had they fled? Had they known somehow? It did not matter. He would destroy the colony anyway. The burned buildings would send the same message. He ordered his ships to begin the attack. That was when the first explosion happened. A nuclear bomb hidden beneath the main city detonated. The blast destroyed 12 ships instantly. Before Tal could react, more explosions followed. The empty colony was not empty at all. It was filled with thousands of nuclear weapons, ancient bombs that humans had supposedly destroyed centuries ago. The trap had been set perfectly. The Council fleet was clustered together, ready to attack a helpless target. They were not ready for a counterattack. 90 ships were destroyed in the first minute. 200 more were damaged. The fleet broke apart in chaos as captains tried to escape the kill zone. Tal screamed orders into his communicator. Retreat. Retreat. Everyone retreat. But there was nowhere to go. The humans had placed mines in the escape routes. They had hidden weapons in the asteroid belt. They had turned the entire star system into a death trap. By the time the surviving ships escaped, 312 vessels had been destroyed. 80,000 Council soldiers were dead. Tal sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the wreckage floating in space. He had commanded armies for 40 years. He had never lost a battle. And he had just been defeated by an enemy he never even saw. A transmission came through. A human face appeared on the screen. It was Admiral Park Tay. Commander Tal, Tay said calmly. Earth does not recognize the authority of the Galactic Council. We consider your attack on New Sol an act of war. We will respond accordingly. Tal found his voice. You killed 80,000 soldiers. You tried to kill 50,000 civilians. Tay's expression did not change. We have been preparing for this moment for 200 years. We hoped it would never come. But we were ready. This is not over, Tal said. The Council will send more ships. Thousands of ships. We will burn your worlds to ash, then send them. Tay leaned forward slightly. But understand something, Commander. We are not like the other species you have conquered. We do not surrender. We do not break. We have been fighting wars since before your empire existed. We have killed more of our own people than you could ever imagine. He paused. You want a war with humanity? You will get one. But it will not end the way you think. It will end when one of us is completely destroyed. And I promise you, Commander, it will not be us. The transmission ended. Vila watched the recording with Elder Rin and the rest of the Council. The room was silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone had defeated a Council fleet. Someone had killed Council soldiers by the thousands, and they had done it with weapons the Council considered primitive. Weapons the humans had built to destroy themselves. Rin's face was pale. What have we done? He whispered. Vela thought about Tay feeding his fish. She thought about Hannah's cold smile. She thought about a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for war. You woke something up, she said. And now, you have to deal with the consequences. The war had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Sol. 6 months of war, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Military analyst Kira sat in her office aboard the Nexon command station, reviewing the latest reports. Her hands were shaking. She had not slept in 3 days. The numbers made no sense. The United Earth Fleet had only 400 warships at the start of the war. The Galactic Council had sent over 8,000 ships to destroy humanity. By every calculation, by every military model, the humans should have been defeated in the first month. Instead, they were winning. Kira pulled up the battle records one by one. She tried to understand what she was seeing. The humans did not fight like any species she had studied. They did not engage in honorable fleet battles. They did not follow the rules of warfare that the galaxy had used for 10,000 years. They cheated. They lied. They hid. They attacked from shadows and disappeared before anyone could respond. At the Battle of Nexer Station, a human fleet pretended to retreat. The Council ships chased them into an asteroid field. The humans had spent weeks hiding bombs in those asteroids. 40 ships were destroyed before anyone understood what was happening. At the siege of Vorn Prime, the humans sent fake surrender signals. When the Council fleet lowered their shields to accept prisoners, human ships launched a surprise attack. 90 ships were destroyed in minutes. At the defense of Earth Colony 7, a single human cruiser faced 20 Council destroyers. Instead of surrendering, the cruiser accelerated directly into the largest enemy ship. The explosion destroyed both vessels and damaged 3 others. The crew had been singing as they died. Kira could not understand it. Why would anyone choose death when surrender was an option? Why would soldiers sacrifice themselves so willingly? Did humans not value their own lives? She remembered something Ambassador Vela had reported months ago. The humans had a saying, win first. Die if necessary. Never surrender. They meant it literally. Commander Tal had been given a second chance after his defeat at New Sol. He assembled a new fleet of 3,000 ships, the largest military force the Council had deployed in centuries. Surely this would be enough to crush the human resistance. Vela was aboard Tal's command ship as an observer. The Council wanted her there to document humanity's final defeat. Instead, she watched their final defeat unfold in real time. The human fleet appeared on sensors. Only 300 ships. Tal laughed when he saw the numbers. They send 300 against 3,000? He shook his head. This will be over quickly. Admiral Park Tae led the human fleet from his flagship, the Resolute. Captain Kim Seok commanded the forward attack group. Intelligence Commander Yoon Hana coordinated the overall strategy from Earth. The battle began. At first, it seemed like Tal was right. The Council fleet had overwhelming numbers. Human ships were being destroyed. The outcome seemed certain. Then the humans did something unexpected. They broke into small groups and scattered in different directions. Instead of facing the Council fleet directly, they attacked supply ships, communication relays, support vessels. They ignored the warships entirely and targeted everything that kept the fleet running. Tal ordered his ships to chase them. The Council fleet spread out across the star system, hunting the small human groups. That was exactly what Tae wanted. Hidden human ships appeared from behind moons and asteroids. They struck isolated Council vessels and disappeared before help could arrive. Every time Tal concentrated his forces in one area, attacks happened in 3 other areas. The humans were not trying to win a battle. They were trying to make the Council bleed slowly. Death by 1,000 cuts. Hours passed. Then days. Tal's fleet was still larger, but his soldiers were exhausted. His supplies were running low. His ships were scattered across the system, unable to protect each other. On the 3rd day, the humans launched their real attack. Every surviving human ship gathered together and struck at the heart of Tal's fleet. They aimed directly at the command ships. They did not try to survive. They only tried to kill. Vela watched from the observation deck as human cruisers slammed into Council destroyers. She saw escape pods launch from dying human ships, then turn around and fly back into the battle. She heard human voices on the communication channels, shouting words she did not understand. Battle cries, prayers, songs. A damaged human ship headed straight for Tal's command vessel. Its engines were failing. Its weapons were empty. It should have been retreating. Instead, it accelerated. Order that ship to surrender. Tal screamed. Tell them we will accept prisoners. The human captain appeared on the screen. He was young, bleeding from a wound on his head. He smiled. My name is Park Jun, he said, son of Admiral Park Tae. Tell your council that humanity sends its regards. The ship hit Tal's vessel at full speed. The explosion destroyed both ships instantly. Commander Tal, who had conquered 12 star systems, died without firing a single shot at his killer. Vela survived. She had been in an escape pod when the explosion happened. She floated in space, surrounded by wreckage, watching the remains of the battle. The Council fleet was broken. Over 2,000 ships destroyed. The survivors were retreating in chaos. The humans had lost 200 ships, but they had won. Again, she was rescued by a human vessel. They treated her wounds. They gave her food and water. They were kind to her, even though her people were their enemy. Lee Bora found her in the medical bay. Ambassador, Bora said softly, Admiral Tae would like to speak with you. Vela followed her to the communication room. Tae's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, older than she remembered, but his eyes were still steady. I am sorry about Commander Tal, Tae said. I understand he was well respected among your people. Vela shook her head. Why are you apologizing? He tried to destroy you. He was doing his duty. I do not hate him for that. Tay paused. I also lost my son today. Park June. He was 26 years old. Vela remembered the young captain on the screen. The smile before impact. I am sorry, thank you. Tay's voice was heavy. This is the price of war, Ambassador. We pay it because we have no choice, but we do not pay it happily, your son. He could have surrendered. He could have survived. He made his choice. He saved his crew by drawing fire to his ship. He destroyed an enemy commander with his final act. He died protecting his people. Tay closed his eyes briefly. I am proud of him, and I will carry his death forever. Vela finally understood something she had been missing. The humans were not monsters. They were not death-seeking fanatics. They were people who loved their families and wanted to live in peace. But they had learned, through thousands of years of terrible history, that peace sometimes required sacrifice. That survival sometimes meant dying so others could live. They did not fight because they wanted to. They fought because they had to. And once they started fighting, they would never stop until they were safe. What happens now? Vela asked. Now we continue. The Council will send more fleets. We will destroy them. Eventually they will understand that the cost of fighting us is greater than the cost of leaving us alone. And if they do not understand? Tay looked at her with those steady eyes. Then we will bring the war to them. We will fight until the Council cannot fight anymore. We will do whatever we must to protect our people. He leaned forward. We did not want this war, Ambassador, but we will finish it. The transmission ended. Vela sat alone in the dark room, thinking about Park June's smile. Thinking about a father who lost his son and kept fighting anyway. She had to make the Council understand. If they continued this war, there would be nothing left. Not of humanity. Not of the Council. Not of anyone. But she was beginning to fear it was already too late. 1 year after the war began, human ships appeared in orbit above the Council capital world. No one had expected it to happen this fast. No one had thought it was possible. Elder Rin stood at the window of the Council chamber, watching the human fleet take position around his planet. There were only 200 ships, a tiny force compared to the armadas the Council once commanded. But those 200 ships had defeated every fleet sent against them. They had destroyed thousands of vessels. They had killed millions of soldiers, and now they were here. Vela stood beside him. She had returned to the Council months ago, trying to convince them to make peace. They had not listened. They had sent fleet after fleet to destroy humanity. Each fleet had been defeated. Each defeat had cost them more than the last. Now there was nothing left to send. We should have listened to you, Rin said quietly. His voice was tired, broken. You warned us. You told us what they were? We did not believe you, Novella agreed. You did not. A communication request came through. Rin hesitated, then accepted it. Admiral Parkte appeared on the screen. He looked different than the man Vela had met a year ago. There were new lines on his face. More gray in his hair. His eyes carried the weight of everything that had happened, but he was still calm, still steady. Rin, Tay said. I am here to discuss the terms of your surrender. Rin closed his eyes. The word surrender had never been spoken in the Council chamber before. For 10,000 years, they had been the ones demanding surrender from others. Now everything had changed. What are your terms? Rin asked. The Galactic Council is dissolved. No empire will ever again have the authority to demand submission from other species. Every world will govern itself. Every species will be free. Rin opened his eyes. That is all? You do not want territory? Resources? Revenge? Tay shook his head slowly. We never wanted anything except to be left alone. You came to our world and threatened our children. You gave us a choice between slavery and death. We chose a third option. You chose war, chose survival. There is a difference. The terms were accepted. The Galactic Council signed documents they had forced others to sign for 10,000 years. The greatest empire in galactic history ended not with a glorious last battle, but with signatures on a screen. The human fleet did not attack the capital. They did not burn the cities or kill the civilians. They simply watched as the council dissolved itself, then returned to their own space. It was over. 3 months later, Vela traveled back to Earth. She had been appointed as the first permanent ambassador from the former council worlds. It was a strange feeling representing the people who had tried to destroy humanity. But the humans did not treat her as an enemy. They welcomed her as a guest. She found Admiral Park Tae in his garden again. He was feeding his fish, just like the first time they met. "Some things never changed, Ambassador Vela," he said without turning around. "Welcome back to Earth." She walked over and stood beside him. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, peaceful. Hard to believe that a terrible war had just ended. "I have a question," Vela said. "Something I have wondered about since the beginning." Tae threw another piece of bread to the fish. "Ask. Weren't you ever afraid?" "Even once. You faced the greatest military power in the galaxy. You were outnumbered 100 to 1. You lost your son, your people, your ships." She paused. "How could you not be afraid?" Tae was silent for a long moment. The fish swam in lazy circles below the surface. "I was afraid every single day," he said finally. "Every morning I woke up wondering if this would be the day we lost everything. Every night I went to sleep carrying the names of everyone who had died because of my decisions." Vela was surprised. She had never seen any fear in him. "Not once." "You hit it well." "I had to." Leaders do not have the luxury of showing fear. Our people needed to believe we could win. They needed to see confidence and strength. If I had shown them my fear, it would have spread like a disease. He finally turned to look at her. His eyes were tired but warm. "Fear is just a feeling, Ambassador. Everyone feels it. The difference is what you do with it. Some people let fear control them. They freeze. They surrender. They give up." Shook his head. "We learned a long time ago that fear cannot be avoided. It can only be used how. Fear tells you what matters. If you are afraid of losing something, it means that thing is important to you. We were afraid of losing our homes, our children, our future. So we used that fear to make ourselves stronger. We trained harder. We planned better. We prepared for everything." He looked back at the fish. "Your council thought fear was a weapon to use against others. But we learned that fear is a weapon to use on yourself. It makes you work when you want to rest. It makes you fight when you want to run. It makes you sacrifice everything to protect what you love." Vela thought about everything she had seen. The battles. The sacrifices. The young captain flying his ship into an enemy vessel with a smile on his face. "You were afraid of losing everything," she said slowly. "So you became willing to do anything to prevent that loss." "Yes, even die. Especially die. Death is easy. Living with failure is hard. Every human soldier who sacrificed themselves chose a quick end over a lifetime of knowing they could have done more."
Ow.
Tae paused. "We do not seek death, Ambassador, but we do not fear it either. We fear living as slaves. We fear watching our children grow up under the rule of others. We fear losing everything that makes us who we are." He smiled slightly. It was a tired smile, full of sorrow and warmth at the same time. "That is why your council could not defeat us. They threatened us with death. But there are things worse than death, and we had already faced them all." Footsteps approached. Captain Kim Seok walked over with a tablet in his hand. "Admiral, the last peace treaties have been signed. All former council worlds have agreed to the terms." Intelligence Commander Yoon Hana followed behind him. "Our colonies are secure. Defense networks are back online. We are safe." Communications Officer Lee Bora came last, smiling brightly. "The first cultural exchange programs are starting next week. We are going to teach alien children about Earth. Is that not wonderful?" Tae looked at his officers. His friends. The people who had stood beside him through the worst year in human history. "Thank you," he said simply. "All of you." They stood together in the garden as the sun finished setting. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, a new galaxy was being born. A galaxy of free worlds. A galaxy without empires, or slaves, or threats. Humanity had paid a terrible price for that galaxy. But they had one, and they would never let anyone take it away from them. Vela looked at the stars and felt something strange. Hope. After a year of war and death and fear, she finally felt hope. "Admiral," she said quietly, "what happens now?" Tay followed her gaze to the stars. "Now we live," he said. "We rebuild. We heal. We make sure our children grow up in a universe where they never have to face what we faced. And if someone threatens that peace..." Tay's eyes were steady, calm, unafraid. "Then we do what we have always done, Ambassador. We survive first. We grieve later. And we never, ever surrender." The stars shone bright above Earth, and somewhere in the darkness, the galaxy was learning a lesson it would never forget. Humanity was not a species to be conquered. They were not a people to be threatened. They were survivors, fighters, protectors, and they were finally home.